I believe that everybody has these core strengths and passions within them. They just may not be tapping into them yet. But if I bring those people into my organization and their strengths and their passions line up with our department mission and vision, which lines up with the organization's vision and mission, like it's a win-win all the way.
You're listening to Being Built. I'm Aaron Davis, the founder of Reliant Search Group. We do executive search and tech staffing. Here with Kalen Howell, the CIO at ChemStation. And you said you do some side stuff too. I'm kind of interested in your interests outside of work as well.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Super excited. Been looking forward to
me too.
Sitting down and chatting.
Yeah, we got some friends in common and bumped into each other a few times. I'm looking forward to getting acquainted with you. So you've been in this role for months now, or has it been longer?
So 3 years or 2 years?
Oh, okay. You've been there for a while then.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Couple of years. 2. Yes.
What do they say? The days are long, but the years are short.
They started asking me how things were going, after a month or so. And of course, we're in the fire, lots of things going on. And it felt like I'd been there for years.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Right. Yeah.
So
you feel familiar because there's so much going on.
I'm deeply engaged in all the different aspects of technology. So this is the first CIO role that they've had at the company.
Okay.
So there's engagement with leadership, developing, the team, engaging with different departments, super innovative company. It's like a gem of a company. It's fantastic culture. Tell
me a little bit about what ChemStation does.
Sure. So we're a chemical manufacturing company, produce mainly soap. And it's a franchise organization. So we have a corporate office, which I'm at headquarters, and we have company-owned manufacturing centers. We have family-owned manufacturing centers and franchise-owned manufacturing centers.
Okay, interesting.
So we cover U.S., and we've got some spots in Canada and Mexico.
Okay.
But mainly across the United States.
Yeah, I guess I've never heard of a franchise of manufacturing organizations. I'm sure that's not the only one out there, but that's the first I've heard of. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I've been familiar with some, but being engaged with one, I'm definitely more aware. Now there's actually, a international franchise organization, and I've spoken with some people there. So yeah, it's very, very common, I would say. But so we do produce the kind of the secret sauce headquarters, different base products, send those out to manufacturing centers based on their custom orders. Okay. And then they do a special blend to meet the specific needs of the customers and clients within, their region.
Their particular operation.
And so I've traveled out the West Coast, East Coast to different centers and met lots of owners and GMs and different folks. And the culture is amazing. It's fantastic. So, yeah.
How big is ChemStation?
From a user's perspective, we're talking about 1,000 users across the network.
I'm always interested in when I ask somebody how big it is. Some people will tell you the revenue. Some people will tell you the number of employees. Some people will tell you the number of stores. Yeah. But when you tell me there's so many users, that tells me what you think about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because
you're a sport, like me, I've spent most of my career in either tech or in some HR function or recruiting function. And when you're a support function, you always think about who your customers, right? So your customers are internal.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because we have our corporate folks that are really close to us. And then we have our manufacturing users who are a little bit like a step out, so they are, truly like our customers, and then they have customers, right? So it's an interesting.
Yeah, I guess you have degrees of closeness in your user base. Yeah. So what are you working on there at ChemStation? Like, what's your big? I know you got a lot going on.
Yeah. So we're implementing a new ERP system.
Okay.
And that's huge. It's going well. But we took a path where we are intimately involved in the evaluating of our current business processes, revamping those business processes more to the ideal state, and then designing intimately involved in the designing of the configuration and layout of the ERP system to line up with our business processes. And that means key people from various departments, not only at corporate, but at manufacturing centers as well. And so everybody has their day job. And this is just added on top of that, right?
Yeah.
So lots of meetings, lots of working sessions. It's really intense for all users, very involved, but it's going very well. I like the fact that our users are intimately involved in thinking about their business processes and doing things the right way. And it's when you think about introducing change, and then you have to have users adopt that change. Well, there's no better way than to have them involved in the beginning, right? So in theory, as we roll this thing out, we're going to have a lot of people that are intimately got skin in the game in terms of adopting the application and the processes and the systems.
Yeah, don't just come to the table, get in the kitchen as
Right.
it's being made, right?
Right. So
It's been a while since I've been part of a big ERP or CRM, some fundamental core system change directly. I've supported a number of customers doing it, but it's interesting how you describe the impact it creates a little self-awareness about how we do business and why. What have you observed to be like the biggest process or business process change?
well,
You spoke a lot about change management when in that seminar that I saw you do.
yes.
You actually spoke really well to it.
It's hard to say what the biggest process change is. I think from our perspective, from my perspective, you kind of have the corporate perspective and the way things work, but our franchises kind of have to interact with corporate, right?
Yeah,
So,
you got a whole series of
yeah.
potential changes.
So you've got manufacturing centers that will sometimes operate differently than the other center, right? They're different regions. They do things a little different, but they all have to interact with corporate, right? So it's about that integration and collaboration, but in terms of from an operational perspective, everybody wants things to happen, smoothly, precisely. So
That's how DoorDash happens. That's how Amazon delivers, right? So everything's got to be immediate.
right.
Yeah, it's great. Some of these big changes that have happened in like lifestyle things. It's also bad because it creates a real impatience to like, the level of detail and attention necessary to make big change on the inside of the machine.
Yeah. This is I have a software development background. I spent 20 years in the software development space.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So from testing, test automation to software engineering, production support, shared middleware. It's right down the street at Lexus for almost 20 years.
Oh, is that right?
They're doing development. So now shift that, entire, 20 years or so deep in the software development space. And now we slide into the manufacturing space, right? Where it's not typically a technology shop, a software development shop, but we do, and I'm super excited about this, nurturing our development team. We build an internal development team.
Is our friend George still there with
Yes,
you?
he
Okay,
is.
cool.
Yes, he is. Fantastic. So we have
Such a likable guy.
yeah.
I like him.
Yeah. I enjoy him, and he brings some relief some days. His humor.
Oh yeah.
He brings his
I don't know
humor
that I
to
ever saw the
table.
humorous side
Yeah,
of him.
I get
He's a
that.
calming presence though. That's what I've always
Yeah,
enjoyed about him.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. So now we have this space of system implementation when we talk about an ERP. System implementation in a waterfall perspective. Very well managed. From waterfall, things need to be documented well in every phase, right? So if you, in that beginning phase, you're talking about defining, refining requirements and such. If you don't get that right, then
It's a lot at risk.
there's phases down the line that's going to suffer
Yeah.
because you're going to say, we didn't get that or we missed that. We got to go back. And every phase is critical to be, very well documented, and the process to be executed very well.
What's your experience like with a waterfall approach to an ERP implementation? How much refining of the requirements goes on, and how intentional and clear is that?
Great question. And I can say from a software development perspective, in my day, agile was the big way, right? And it was like, in the beginning, it was like, oh, waterfall, we'll do everything agile. Well, and the truth of the matter is that the methodology, whether waterfall or agile, is based upon the type of project that you're executing. Now, in my perspective, and I've been in the financial space, and where we're at now when we're talking about ERP and these accounting systems and financial systems and inventory systems, I personally feel waterfall is the right way. Now, depending on how well you do each phase determines how much you have to go back and refine and refactor, right? So I can tell you that our ERP implementation, which we have a vendor managing that, it's very well done.
Good.
Very well done from a manager.
And largely because it's been tight on the front end, right?
Yeah, and all the way through. So we've got excellent project manager and implementation folks on the vendor and the development side. We have a project manager on our side that helps us keep in line, because we're building an application that will integrate with this ERP system.
Okay. Wow. So you're doing some custom building at the same time. Huh?
And on top of that custom building is agile.
Okay.
So we're
different approaches to building the whole system.
Yeah. So it's really I feel I'll have a good case study.
It just sounds like it, man. It sounds like I could see it now. Integrating waterfall and agile.
Yeah. It's heavy. It's good though.
Maybe that's the title of your next talk, right?
Yeah, that's funny. We won't go there, but I've already been tapped for some topics.
That would be an interesting one. When I worked in a software consulting shop, the iterative nature or the iterative approach to the work was the most important aspect of our whatever methodology framework, whatever you used. Just the ability to be nimble and to recognize the reality of the unknowns, right? We found that to be really valuable. And I also didn't find that to be, it's like if I liken it to religion or whatever, like this golden rule it's just empathy, right? And like it exists in every worldview, right? And the same is true with iteration when it comes to your methodology for building something.
Yeah.
Whether you're building a physical thing, a building, you know what I mean? Like, we just uncovered something with regard to the grading of the property or whatever.
Yep.
We got to pivot, right?
Yep.
So just being able to be nimble and having some mechanism, whether that's a change order or whatever, all the way down to we stop and talk about it every 15 minutes. Having some mechanism for recognizing the nature of unknowns. Anytime you're building something new, maybe a building's not a great example because you're often building the same strip mall over and over.
No, you're speaking to actual situations that we've encountered. This, where we have to bring the key players to the table and evaluate what we've uncovered and discovered, and bring the right people in and talk about, how do we respond to this? Does this require a new customization, or is this really a process that we need to build in, or is this the right process at all? Right. So that's been, to me, I enjoy it. I really enjoy that. So the team, we come together and we dig in, and
that's where you get pulled into the business side of things, right?
Exactly.
It's not just a ones and zeros kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned before we turned the cameras on about some side work that you're doing. Tell me a little bit about your interests outside of the office.
Oh, I have lots of interest, but so what's going on right now is preparing for an event that my team and I are hosting for Black History Month.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, and it is turns out it's the 29th, the same day that
Leap day. Oh yeah, you can't make the happy hour.
I know.
Oh
I
no.
just yeah. So
Won't
I
be able
can't
to make it?
No.
We'll miss you, man.
The event is that evening,
Okay.
29th. So
I can't poll the audience before I do those things. There's too
Right.
many people now.
Right,
but-
right. So the title of it is Healing Histories, a Community Conversation.
Okay.
All right. And I can give you some background
Yeah,
and
please.
context on how we got
Yeah,
to
I'm
that
curious.
spot. So coming out of the pandemic, my father passed away. And of course, there was a lot of things going on in the nation as well during that time. And in particularly, the George Floyd thing happened. And adding to the other previous things that have come, it kind of was like the final straw. I found myself literally sitting in front of, working from home, sitting in front of the news at lunch. And I could get away from the computer, go lunch, and seeing the news, which is probably something I shouldn't have been watching, but watching the news. And
They're pretty good at getting you upset,
I found myself crying and bawling about, situations, and it brought me back to some pains and angers and things that had happened to me when I was a young man.
Okay.
And there's a list of things that happened and now fortunately I can say that, one, I got saved. And two,
You got saved. You're a man of faith is what you're
I'm a man of
referring to.
faith.
Okay. Yeah.
I got saved.
I know the language.
I can tell, there's a whole story around that. I'm trying to keep to but I got saved. That's a key point. And I was able to take the anger and pain that I had been carrying as a young man, which I wore openly, I'd say openly on my shoulders,
Yeah.
of being angry and having some issues and looking for opportunities to express my anger. I was able to channel that into getting my education and through some soul searching, finding my purpose, and which so I'll say when I got saved, I was working in a factory. Actually, I wasn't working; I was living in my car. But
Wow.
I got a job in a factory. I ended up getting my Class A CDL license. Didn't have to pay for that through the company. Driving a truck over the road. Decided that technology was let me say this, was reminded of how passionate I was about technology from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So
There's a lost love.
my parents got me a computer when I was 10 and
Really?
there's a whole thing around that. But I
The
was,
one that got away, huh?
I was
Wow.
reminded of that passion.
That's cool.
And that was during an opportunity, I'll say a time of driving a truck. I was over the road 6 days a week by myself and I have to give a shout out to Franklin Covey, Seven Habits, Highly Effective People.
Okay.
Give a shout out at that.
That was a transformational reading.
That was a powerful reading, but it took me into thinking about what my true passion and interests were. And so with that, I was driving over the road, got a local job, Gordon Food Service, And at 28 years old, I go back to school for my associate's degree at Retz Tech Center, which is now where Fortis College is.
Yeah.
Got my associates. Was able to get into technology. Started off at Fletcher at the computer store there, the Systemax.
Okay.
They built computers for the home shopping network.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so tech support
That dials
on the
us
phones,
back a little bit.
so tech support on the phones. Moved into Sarcom, which their base was right down the street.
Yeah.
So I got my associates, ended up at Lexus, and went on and got my bachelor's in IT, went on and got my master's in computer science, became and achieved that childhood dream that I declared when I was in the truck that I'm going to be in the software development space. I declared it.
Man, the power of like a passion or a commitment. You know what I mean?
The power of purpose.
Right. Oh, yeah. There you go.
That came to fruition, and I became a software engineer, a senior software engineer, doing amazing, working with amazing people, was going out to San Francisco to work with startups that had cutting edge technology, doing graph databases. I was doing recommendation engine work. And before AI, it was machine learning and statistical, algorithms and, predictive.
It's not that different now.
It's not, right?
It just sounds sexier. They got good marketing. It is different. It's not that different, though.
It is under the covers.
Right.
But so I got my master's in computer science, and reluctantly, I stepped into a management / leadership spot because I had a previous, I'll say a couple leaders. There's managers come to me. I'd left the software quality engineering space and went into the software engineering space, and they came and tapped me on my shoulder and said, "We need you over here. We've got they showed me the vision, the leadership vision of where they were going as an organization." And I was like, I had at the time made it my identity to be a software engineer, which is a mistake. And it was hard for me. It took me a week to get back to him because I'm like, how can I not be a software engineer? Right. This was my thing,
You're too committed to the task.
Yeah.
Being a purpose-driven person,
yes,
you're limited by the task.
I was like, I'm not sure. And so...
so that was a maturing moment, huh?
Yeah, it took me a week. And, I should back up a little bit and say that when I started for my associate's degree, and I was still driving a truck, and I took a serious pay cut. I went from $45K a year driving local for GFS to $11 an hour.
Did you really?
Right. To step into,
to get on the right ladder.
To get on the right ladder. Yeah. And you know what? I always tell this story. I was so excited because I remember the very first day that I went to that Systemax to work. And it was the first that I could remember not wearing steel-toed boots.
I used to wear the metatarsals, man. I know the uniform.
Yes, I had on khakis, and but
did that feel good, man, to put on a new uniform?
Man, it felt amazing.
It's like you get that fresh fade. It's new you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But in a more existential way, when this is a new career,
right?
Because it's a big chunk of who you are.
Exactly.
Man. That's
exactly.
huge.
Yeah. So to make ends meet, I first took a second job at Myers as loss prevention specialist, working third shift. And I worked that for about a month, and I seen that little bitsy check I got, and I'm like, So I thought to myself, I could do more from a technology perspective doing consulting. So I created a business, and I was a one-man show for a while until I landed this opportunity with the president of then Retz Tech Center, which became Fordhurst College. Anyway, we'll make a long story short. I started a business, and we had probably 10 to 12 people max at our height. Had that business for 16 years.
Wow. Okay.
We covered from the north side of Cincinnati, Dayton, Springfield, and Urbana, even the city of Urbana. We provided.
Did you grow up here locally then?
Grew up in Urbana.
Okay.
Grew up in Urbana.
All in the sticks. Huh?
Yeah. So to fast forward back to where we were, we've got, at this point in time, 14, 15 years of running my own business, and I'm being asked to step into a management position. And it kind of clicked that this is a transformation from being an individual contributor to an organizational influencer. That led into management and me embracing this leadership path. At the time, now I've already got my master's in computer science. At the time, I'm like, technology and business, there's something there. And I remember talking and praying with my wife about this, and we decided, yes, I want to go for my MBA, right?
Where'd you do your MBA?
University of Dayton.
Okay, nice.
Amazing story is talking about this for months about going for my MBA. I finally make the decision. My wife and I agreed we're going to go for our MBA, and it was on the weekend. And that very next week, there was an announcement at LexisNexis, a partnership between UD and LexisNexis, where the professors come to the campus and teach weeknights on campus at LexisNexis.
So you were getting that great gas mileage before the work from home thing. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
What an opportune moment.
yeah. So that was amazing. So
So you did your whole MBA right there on site where you were.
well, I did about half of it there.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
then the second half, then I ended up leaving. Actually got so they shifted. Lexus shifted their headquarters, down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I didn't want to move.
Okay.
I was in management, so I had a team in Raleigh and in Dayton. So through that process, and I reached the end of my time at LN, and we parted ways, and then so I started finished the second half of my MBA on campus at UD, which was totally amazing. It was totally amazing. Really, it was really an amazing experience at UD. And
we started talking about your path, like how you got where you are because of the work you said you're doing that's correlated to Black History Month.
Yes.
Take me to the end there.
This
What happened?
is a great segue. So my embracing of leadership, took me down a pathway of really soul searching and thinking about myself, my values, my principles,
Sure.
my personal operating philosophy of a person. Who do I want to be, right? Embracing leadership is just not leadership in the corporate. It's embracing it as in my entire person.
It's who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So family, corporate, community. Well, an opportunity comes along. I guess this goes back to the George Floyd situation, right?
Yeah.
And
You had a moment there, a series of moments that got you reflecting, right?
yes. So that situation happened, and I was called to a meeting at our church by some folks that said, "Hey, we want to be a part of the solution to help our community be a part of this solution, to this change in this racial dynamics, right?" Well, lo and behold, I still hadn't dealt with some things. I had some chips on my shoulders, and my immediate response was, "I'm not going to that." I say my wife is Caucasian; she's white. Okay, my wife is white.
Okay.
We get the text message. My wife is like, and she's a firecracker.
Okay.
She's like, "I'm going to
High
the
energy,
meeting."
strong opinions.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to the meeting. And I'm like, it doesn't even make sense for you to go and me not to go.
Right.
How am I not going to go? I'm like, that's just going to be ridiculous.
That's what a partner
right?
does, though.
You're right.
They challenge you.
Yes. And I've got whole stories on that. But so we go, and at this meeting, it comes out. Someone sees me, and I'm looking very anxious. We're 3/4 of the way through. My knees popping, and guy's like, "I think Kalen has something to say." So I grab the mic, I go up there, and it just comes out in a flood. All of these pains and angers and things that happened to me, and it just came out. So that was the beginning of a healing process for me that I didn't know I needed healed from. Right.
Yeah, you forgot about those scars, huh?
Yeah, they were embedded. I had locked them down. Right. And so that, to kind of bring us towards the end of that story, that led to the creation of an event, the Urbana Black Heritage Festival, which we're going into our third year in Urbana. Huge support from the community, from the city, from businesses, huge support. We're doing it on the historical Black, area of town, on that street. At the park is at the hub of that, which is Barbara Howell, which is my grandmother.
Oh, interesting.
She had done amazing things in the community, and there's a park named after her.
Okay.
Right. So through my healing journey, I start learning about a lot of the other Black families and ancestors and folks that through the 1800s, 1900s have done amazing things that we promoted through our festival and our social media. And it's just been amazing. So to take the festival to the next level, we're moving into the third year. I wanted to create a nonprofit organization, which is the Barbara Howell Park Conservancy.
And Barbara Howell was
my
your
grandmother.
Okay.
Yes. And so the Conservancy, our mission is, to preserve the culture, but also to bring educational opportunities to the community, to be inclusive connecting, celebrating type of vibe to our community for growing together, healing together, right? So that's the
Man, what a winner's attitude, man.
Hey.
I'm inspired by that, by your attitude and your approach to that whole thing, because there's so much contention in that subject and not enough great energy and dignifying, energizing, celebrating approach. And man, it just feels really good to hear that. I'm impressed.
It's real. It's like I'm doing some work around this, but going through the healing process unblocks us from our to greater abilities to achieve our potential, right? Healing, like, so anger, hate, all those things inside of us are blockers to our true potential, right? So I'm experiencing significant change in here,
Man.
right? From this healing process. And I want other people to experience that.
Yeah.
Because along this journey, I've met people, and I didn't know this, but for many, many years, I kept these things inside of me. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't talk to too many people about these things. And lo and behold, as I start to share my story, I find out that there's all these other people that feel exactly the same way that I do. Right?
Just finding good company probably is healing in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Just knowing that others, just feeling seen,
Right.
feeling valid, right?
And I'll share that it's not just people, African Americans and Black folks that I'm talking to that have this pain and hurt. I've sat in offices with executive leaders, Caucasian, white, and we've cried together over the pain, of the things that are happening, the things going on, the perspectives of certain people. And we've cried together. And to me, that was it was another healing opportunity for me to get someone else's perspective from the other side, you know what I mean? And receive that empathy and that support.
And there's something powerful, something, almost hard to really measure about taking scars and pain that come from very negative, hurtful, hateful things and figuring out a way to come out. It's like what they call alchemists or whatever, you can take a rock or take steel, turn it into gold or something, right? I mean, that is kind of the nature of taking hate and hurt and pain and conflict and friction and turning that into those vulnerable moments where you're connecting with somebody and appreciating their humanity at the deepest level, so much deeper than all these petty little, demographics about us and whatever else. You see them, you hear them, you feel who they are. And to get to that point by way of, likening your difficulties, right? There's something kind of, something kind of magical about that, right? Something kind of otherworldly about that.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm super excited, a little bit anxious because of the unknown, because I see and I feel the transformation, and I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I'm just kind of like, okay, let's just, I'm out here. You know what I mean? I'm just out here, and we're just walking the walk, and kind of goes back to that. And I've got a project I did at UD.
Okay.
My MBA program. And the process was literally documenting and developing a leadership lifestyle, like life plan, right? And in that, I went all the way back to evaluating my core strengths, principles, values, integrity. And I went all the way back there, and then built outwards the vision of who I want to be, where I want to be intentionally. How do I do that? And from that moment on, it's just been amazing. For once in my life, I wasn't striving, always like waking up every day thinking, man, I got to get to the next level. I got to transfer. I got to learn this. I got to be this. I was going to ask
you, like, where are you at on that ladder? Are you still chasing? Are you still climbing, or what?
Yeah, I'm not chasing. Right. That's actually the core to what I was just kind of describing. Is I spent decades chasing, becoming, changing, right, transforming. Now I'm just being.
Yeah.
It's a fundamentally different thing, man. Just be.
Yeah.
Understand like my weaknesses, understand my strengths,
Yeah.
And not be, afraid to let it show, acknowledging, those things, and literally just be the best that I can every single day. And it's so much easier. It's so much easier because I don't have to prove myself to anyone, right? If people think this about me or that about me,
you're less worried because you're not climbing.
Yeah, it's exactly.
This has been such a refreshing dialogue. When I started this show, I remember thinking like the name being built was a little bit of a call out to cool stuff that people are building. You get some founders that are building cool tech projects or products. You got some enterprise leaders like yourself who are kind of improving organizations and transforming organizations and building things in their own way. And I was really intrigued. I still am really intrigued. And I really appreciate the vulnerability of this conversation because I'm really intrigued by exactly that journey you've been through and how building things, even if it's your career or your experiences, your knowledge, and the projects you get involved in, and the organizations you help, and the companies you build and stuff, and then how it builds you along the way. That's the most intriguing part of being a builder to me, because there's something interesting about stepping back and saying, I built that. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes maybe part of who you are in the most lasting way. You know what I mean? Because that park named for your grandmother, she didn't build the park, but she built something in that community to merit recognition indefinitely, right? And that's kind of the nature of building something, right? It creates, like just kind of working, scrambling, achieving, earning. Those things don't last the way having built something does. Yeah. And that does something to you as a person. It changes you. It builds you. You know what I mean? It makes you something new.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love that kind of journey that you shared about how, you didn't go from help desk to CIO. You went from living in your car to CIO. Like there's something that happens, man.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So what's the name of the organization that you said you're doing a festival later this month?
So this is the first event. Let me back up. The Barbara Howell Park Conservancy nonprofit was incorporated in the summer of 2023.
Okay.
The Urbana the Urbana Black Heritage Festival, we're moving into our third year.
Okay.
All right.
There's two different entities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Barbara Howell Park Conservancy will consist of educational events and activities to help preserve. Building up that park is another initiative that we have going on. Initiatives for youth, initiatives for poor. So we have some initiatives under the park. The Urbana Black Heritage Festival is an event that falls underneath that conservancy. Okay. The event that we're doing at the end of this month, Healing Histories, a community conversation, which is modeled after my experience, by the way, of my first healing, really powerful healing that I just described at a community conversation that I wasn't planning on it being anything more than me just going and shaking my head. Right.
Your life's different now.
Exactly. So that's what this is modeled after. But this event is hosted underneath the Conservancy.
Man, what a journey you've been on as a person, as a professional, but as a leader too, right? Like the people you're influencing and impacting is interesting. That's cool, man. I commend you for that effort that you're putting into that.
You talked about the name of your, being built,
Yeah.
the things that we build, and as a leader, and this has really been impactful for me recently.
Okay.
Is those folks that were in my organization previously, who we still maintain that relationship. It's like that relationships are being built, right? I just spoke to someone recently that that was in my organization at a previous place, and it was really an awesome, powerful conversation, and they're continuing to strive. I got to get some insights into the organization where I was at, and see some of the things that I was instrumental in building are still there, from an organizational perspective. And so relationships.
Yeah. You know what's funny is getting into I don't know if I'm in the second half. I guess I'm in the second half of my life now. You get into the second half of your life and you take inventory of the things that matter most, and the number of relationships that really, really matter, that are really transformational. Sometimes they're kind of passing. Sometimes they come and go, but they're really I can think of a handful of folks in my life who they were relationships that happened for a period, and I don't even keep up, but they were transformational to my life, right? But as I take inventory of those things in the second half of my life, and I'm not clamoring for $1 or trying to figure out how to feed my kids or whatever, feel a lot more secure about those things. And now I'm thinking about how do I age? Like when I'm walking on a cane, who's going to be hanging out with me, right?
Yeah.
And it's you really start to value very differently how important and how impactful and how just present people in your life are. And I pair that with work a lot, man, because I don't really have to have some strategic approach to relationship development in my work anymore. Like you, I'm like, I can just be myself now. You know what I mean? Because I'm old and I figured out how to do things. I don't feel like I have to pretend or justify myself. But wow, what a freeing thing that is, just to feel okay and know who you are and feel good with that. And then the ability to build more genuine, high impact relationships with people. And to be in the kind of work where that's fundamental to what I do to make a living is such a gift, man.
Yeah.
And as a leader, that's true for you. As a recruiter, that's true for me. And it's cool how often just connections will happen in the line of duty here that end up being really meaningful, impactful, whether it's friendships, mentoring, inspiration that happens for a moment and moves. Or whatnot. But anyway, all that just to say, I feel really fortunate to have kind of relationship building and be such a fundamental part of what I do. Right?
Yeah.
And it's cool that you get to do that even as a technologist, right?
Yeah. And I'm actually being more intentional about that. I have to be very selective, I can tell you. I get bombarded, and so I recognize the value of my time, and having a purpose and a mission and a vision allows me to make sure that, I don't get pulled out of that pathway. But
that's a huge filter.
Yeah.
Being purpose driven, right?
Have to be. Yes. Because there's so many distractions and other people's
sales pitches.
Yeah.
Sorry, salespeople, I love you.
Yes.
Everybody's selling something.
Yeah.
I mean, your colleague in the other cube is selling something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of distractions out there.
Yeah. So
I think some people forget, whether it's chemicals or resumes, whatever your product is, whatever, right? Some people forget that behind that stuff, I mean, those chemicals that you're franchisees are producing for their customers, for your end-to-end customers, right? That's something that impacts the quality of life or the comfort of life of somebody, right? That's the thing that actually matters, right? That's the thing that actually matters. And I think sometimes we get so disconnected in the corporate life because corporate is about all these mechanisms in the machine. If you take a look at a clock or something and you're like, it's about being able to see where those hands are against those numbers. That's what really matters, right?
Right.
But you and I, we work inside that cog somewhere, right? In that battery somewhere or whatever.
Yeah.
And we get disconnected from like, I guess that's one of the downsides to it, being in a really efficient economy and a really advanced, technologically advanced ecosystem or whatever. So much of the work that we do is so far removed from that handshake and that connection with the human or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it probably was 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where products were less sophisticated, services were less sophisticated, and customers and relationships were just more fundamental to everything that we did for work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting because that speaks to some of my challenges. Is you talk about us, we're kind of in the trenches and we're in the complex space within the machine.
Yeah.
And part of my role as CIO is to be able to show, the hands that indicate where things are and communicate.
Yeah. Translate that ERP.
Yeah.
To that soap. Right. That's a long span, right?
Yeah. And I need to be able to show and educate my peers, and leadership and beyond, right? This is what we're bringing to the table, and, the complexity, the energy, the skill sets, the knowledge, the experience, and all the things that's needed to build this thing from a technology perspective. They understand how to do it from a soap perspective, from a chemical perspective. And that's outside of my realm to understand the chemistry behind, now I've watched some tutorials and they've had me in the lab and we've seen them. And I even had the white coat on, and I'm doing the thing that they're showing me about.
Played one on TV or whatever.
No, they took me in the lab.
That's cool.
That's part of like orientation, and it's like cool. Like I'm in the mix, like, okay, I see what's going on every day. Right. But I still don't have the understanding that they have as chemists. Right.
I'll give you a different view of it. So, how many people are on your team? And then your contractors, how many people are you leading? 60, 600? What is it?
No, right now, probably, I'm going to guess and say
you got contractors,
12, 13.
And vendors, and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. Not counting vendors, just, full-time, hands in the mix, 14, 15 people right now.
So you got more than a dozen folks who have entrusted you with the livelihood of their families, right? And so you don't have to go all the way to the soap, right?
Right.
You can be purpose-driven, mission-driven, high-impact, relationship, conscientious, just in that you've got a dozen families who rely on your leadership to invest and build their career opportunity and the value of the work that they produce and what that does for them and their livelihood, right?
Yeah.
And I worked for an organization years back, and it was interesting because they had a lot of companies state as their mission, they keep customers at the center. A lot of companies have like product or like kind of industry passion at the center. But this particular company that I worked for years back, interestingly, and I don't see this often, but as a stated purpose in the organization, it was about creating a lucrative livelihood for our team. And you would have thought that that made a bunch of cutthroat, greedy, whatever. But I think that the respect for the dignity of that, and you came to understand that providing good value to customers was a fundamental part of that bigger mission, which was creating an ecosystem where those team members and your colleagues or whatever could thrive and build their careers and have success. And they had a pretty good track record of, taking people who were doing service jobs and other things and kind of building, career opportunity for them and stuff. So that was interesting perspective to me to hear an organization talk about kind of mission and values and whatever that had to do with the staff just thriving and doing well,
Absolutely. And that is really at the core of kind of my philosophy from a leadership perspective.
No doubt, man. You came a long way from driving a truck.
Yeah. I kind of take my own experience as an individual contributor, and I can take the good, the bad, the ugly, and say, okay, I like this, I don't like that, right? So I can already empathize with every, with individuals, on my team or in my organization, wherever I'm at. But one of the first things I do is say, you come to a new organization, you want to kind of, I guess, understand how you want to assimilate into the organization, right? So I'm not going to come in and flip tables. I mean, that's not why I was brought in, right? Some organizations may bring in somebody to flip the tables up, we're changing things up, right? That's not the way that I have been brought into the organization. So understand the organization, understand the culture, assimilate with the culture, and then from a technology perspective, and I work with my team to put together a vision and a mission statement, a vision that shows how, and it's all about us being a value center, right? I talk about this often, that traditional IT is often seen as a cost center, right? A utility, right? Well, we need to save water. So let's just turn, right, whatever. So, but I love technology, and I believe that technology is an enabler for a business, to be transformed, right? And so my goal is that my team embraces that philosophy, and we become known as a value center to our partners. And when trouble comes, our business partners, our business will call us and say, I've got problem XYZ. How can you guys help me with this, right? And we come together and we collaborate together as partners to determine what type of technology solution might fit. Maybe they're only utilizing a tool at 10%. Well, let's help you maximize the use of this tool. Yeah. Right. Let's get you some training. Maybe we don't have the right tool in place. Right. That's my goal, is that our business looks at us and says, man, we've got a rock solid technology team. They got our backs. We can be innovative, we can be creative, and go to the next level. So that's my ultimate goal. And everyone on my team, I think, has that. And in turn, just like I feel like maximizing on our strengths, I had a couple of leaders get a book, Strength Finders 2.0.
Okay.
And that was an enlightening game changer for me to understand what my real strengths were. And I remember reading those strengths, and I said, man.
Is that the Gallup organization?
Yes.
So my wife's first cousin, one of my favorite cousins, is a Gallup certified Strength Finder coach.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. I swear by it. Strength Finders is amazing.
Love you, Fifi. She's going to like that. I gave her a shout out.
Yes. And what it did is it taught me, how do I say it? When I found out what my core strengths were, I was able to look back and say, oh, that's why I did that 10 years ago. Yeah. That's why I think that way.
There's a self-actualization going on there. Huh?
And so when I found that out, and when I saw that, strategic thinker, analytical, achiever, which means I have a problem when I go out to the beach on vacation, not reading a book for, it's like I got to have a bored
book when you're not building.
I'm like, this got to be feeding me,
Are you the guy out there making the sandcastle to make it better than the next guy?
It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, I could surf. I'm getting
right. Yeah. So when I started to understand what my strengths were,
Mm-hmm.
I literally went through this exercise and said, how can I build my career so that when I'm at work and I'm getting paid, I'm doing these things that I love to do
Mm-hmm.
because these are innate within me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, strength finders, game changer.
Interesting.
So with that, I believe that everybody has these core strengths and passions within them.
Yeah.
They just may not be tapping into them yet. But if I bring those people into my organization and their strengths and their passions line up with our department mission and vision, which lines up with the organization's vision and mission, like it's a win-win all the way.
Man, that's a huge part of my practice. So you know how you recognized later that it was there all along, right? So I've had this realization about myself that I've got a little bit of a talent, an innate just skill. Maybe it's just driven by passion and interest or whatever else, but to kind of hear what matters most to folks. So I'm no certified Gallup Strengths Finder coach or anything, but I hear the things that people are great at and the way that they talk and the things they focus on and that kind of thing. And I hear that from employers and I hear that from candidates. And I've gotten really good at like saying like, oh man, you guys are going to like each other.
Yeah.
You guys are going to hit the fast lane fast. I know this is going to work well. Right. And a lot of it just has to do with that. Those 2 or 3 things that are like kind of fundamental parts of who you are that make it easier to focus on that or work that way or be energized by this, kind of, driver. And I find that to be almost, I don't know what measure, but significantly impactful to the alignment of people who are working together.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Maybe I should get a little bit more refined in how I measure that, but it's an innate skill, right? And I just enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
You guys are going to click.
Yeah, that's
I feel like the grandma trying to get people to go on dates, right?
Yeah.
You guys are going to love each other.
So if I could totally guess, and I'm not certified either from this, but you sound like a connector.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hands down.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, what's next for you at ChemStation?
Oh man, we're we've got the big ERP implementation. We've got a big software implementation, which we're doing in the cloud, Azure DevOps. The whole CI/CD. So that's amazing. So we're so we're working hard to deliver on those huge initiatives. At the same time, you can't be in the technology space and not have your eye on everything that's going on with AI. Right. So
yeah, I caught that in your talk. And
Yeah.
it was a great observation about a couple of, in fact, I think there was a tool I picked up after that, Fireflies or some tool that you recommended that's been useful to me.
So without distracting folks, me and my dev manager, we have regular conversations and talks and explore, and he stays up with the latest news.
Yeah.
But we're looking at some internal, opportunities to bring an LLM internal and, different kind of use cases and scenarios that might apply, to adopting some AI technology. And I've got some key, I would say they're vendors, but there's some key relationships of people in really, really good positions with really, really good experience in the implementation that keep me, kind of on speed dial, right? So when it comes time to doing something, I've got the right people that I can tap for exploring how we might take advantage of AI in our space. So, but right now we have our priorities.
You got a lot on your plate
and
already.
we are not deviating away from that. We are, and it's interesting when, as we're working through this, we are actually establishing, and improving and refining processes as we go, right? So you think about the software development space, how do you, quality and testing and, there's just the whole methodology around it. We're refining and developing those things as we go.
Well, hey man, I did not anticipate being challenged at such like an introspective way in this conversation. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. This has been fun, and to do it for everybody. You guys get to enjoy the benefit of it too. But thank you so much for doing this, and good luck on the big projects that you've undertaken and this event that you're having on the 29th. We'll miss you at our little get together.
Yep. Well, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, my friend.